At 2:03 a.m., the needle didn't swing north. It dropped, perfectly vertical, pinning itself toward the motel floor like gravity had learned a new rule. The air sat at 71 degrees Fahrenheit, dead still, no fans, no vents, no truck rumble outside on Route 191. I raised the compass to eye level, and it kept pointing down, as if north had fallen through the room. 12 days earlier, I bought the brass pocket compass from a foreclosure sale in Bozeman for $40 cash, no receipt, just a nod from a man who wouldn't meet my eyes. It rattled faintly, not broken, just old. The seller said it belonged to a surveyor who disappeared in October of 1973 near the Madison Range. The caseback was etched with 4 coordinates and a date, October 14, 73. The etching read 45.2561N, 111.4419W, then 45.2540N, 111.4390W, then 45.2518N, 111.4362W, then simply 45.2499N, 111.4340W. A straight diagonal, stepping south by about 0.0062 degrees of latitude each time, roughly 2,000 feet between marks. The final point Saturday, January 2nd, miles from the nearest trailhead. The date had been scored so hard the metal peened around it. Tested the compass 3 nights in a row at home. It pointed true north within 2 degrees by the window, then sagged to vertical when I set it on the kitchen tile, then recovered when I lifted it above waist height. At 12 inches above the floor it still leaned, at 3 feet it snapped level. Something below my feet was pulling more than habit. At 6:42 a.m., I drove south at 58 miles per hour toward the Madison Range, elevation climbing past 5,300 feet, coffee cooling to 91 degrees Fahrenheit by Ennis Lake. The compass rode the passenger seat, needle shivering like a trapped fly whenever the truck hit a bump. At a stop sign, it dipped again, then leveled when I held it near the windshield. Down, up, down, up. I met Ellie at the trailhead at 8:11 a.m., a geophysicist with a trunk full of instruments that hummed before you plugged them in. We packed a fluxgate magnetometer, a handheld gradiometer, a cheap Geiger counter, 2 headlamps, and 200 feet of static rope. Air temperature, 63 Fahrenheit. Wind, 4 miles per hour, steady from the west. Hiked 1.2 miles east by northeast, gaining 410 feet over switchbacks that bit hard into shale. The compass swung obediently north until we hit the first etched coordinate at 9:02 a.m., then it slumped toward my bootlaces. Ellie checked her magnetometer. She read -2,385 nanoteslas vertical at ground level. Her eyebrows lifted half an inch. At the second coordinate, 452 feet downslope, the needle didn't waver at all. It pressed against the glass as if the case had flipped upside down, except it hadn't. Ellie placed the magnetometer probe 6 inches above the soil, then at 2 feet, then at 4 feet. The anomaly halved by 4 feet, then vanished by 6, like a buried magnet stacked below our world. We triangulated using a tape line and simple pacing. Each etched coordinate sat exactly 720 feet apart along a southeast azimuth of 137 degrees, within a margin of 8 feet. The final point perched over a collapsed sink where groundwater had chewed the mountain from below. Cold air rose from the crack at 49 Fahrenheit, 6 degrees cooler than the shade. We lowered a GoPro on paracord, dropping in 1-foot increments while calling out depths at 10-second stamps. At 17 feet, the video showed pale stone. At 23 feet, the frame darkened into a throat as smooth as poured concrete. At 31 feet, the cord twitched, and the compass in my other hand jerked hard south, then slammed vertical so fast it clicked. Ellie flipped the gradiometer and muttered numbers that sounded like an elevator falling. -4,990 nanoteslas vertical at 2 feet above the crack, stronger than any localized iron boulder should throw. She passed me a neodymium test magnet the size of a quarter. It didn't tug at the soil at all. Whatever was pulling wasn't standard iron sitting inches down. We set the audio recorder at 44.1 kHz to catch sub-audible rumbles, 10 minutes continuous. At 3 minutes 27 seconds, the spectrum showed a clean 9 Hz band that rose to 12 Hz, then dropped like a heartbeat leaving the body. It repeated every 61 seconds, never drifting by more than a second. The ground was breathing in exact time. Ellie suggested a pipe, an ancient exploratory shaft, maybe a mine with vertical rails gone to rust. Yet the magnetometer signature didn't match a cylinder of metal, it mapped as a line, a true plumb line, pointing down with impossible focus. Gravity doesn't choose. Magnetism doesn't point below itself. Her voice sounded too loud in the morning quiet. We flew a small drone over the site at 10:14 a.m., hovering at 40 feet, then 80, then 120. The onboard compass lost calibration 3 times, always above the crack, never elsewhere. At 120 feet AGL, the drone spun 180 degrees and refused input for 4 seconds, drifting 12 feet south. On landing, its flight log labeled the event as your anomaly. 10:31 a.m., my mechanical wristwatch, wound that morning, stopped at 10:31 exactly, with the seconds hand arrested on 5. I shook it and it ticked again, until I held it over the opening, where it stalled within 4 seconds. Pull it back, and it resumed. Down it went dead. Up it came back to life, like it refused time below a threshold. I checked my phone's camera on a 60 frames per second setting and recorded a slow arc around the sink. Reviewing the clip, frames 1801 through 1812 were identical, a freeze at 30.01 seconds, then motion resumed without a jump. 12 stuck frames, perfect continuity, fake time sliding through real time. The audio continued under the pause, unfazed. We tried a cheap handheld ham radio at 146.520 MHz, calling for a radio check at 10:43 a.m. The echo that came back wasn't from any repeater we knew, it was our call, syllables reversed, 6 seconds delayed, amplitude reduced by half with each syllable. Ellie counted the decay, 1 by 2, 1 by 4, 1 by 8. A binary graveyard of voice. Back at the truck, we dug through archived topo maps printed in 1959 and a survey sheet dated July 8, 1971. A note in pencil read simply vertical anomaly noted at STA 4+20, refer Latham. Station 4+20 feet aligned with our last coordinate within 15 feet. The name, Latham, matched a missing persons notice from October 1973. The newspaper microfilm at 1:55 p.m. fixed the rest. Robert Latham, 43, Bureau of Reclamation contractor, last seen October 14, 1973, at 2:10 p.m., hiking toward a private survey marker near Sphinx Mountain. Reported carrying a barometer, a notebook, and a pocket compass. Found, nothing, not a scrap of fabric, after a 5-day search covering 32 square miles. Returned at 4:07 p.m. with 200 feet of fresh line, ascender, descender, helmets, and a small bag of glow sticks. Ellie tied knots at 10-foot intervals for easy counting. The air issuing from the crack held at 49 Fahrenheit despite the 71-degree late afternoon. The compass needle looked exhausted, pressed down so long it had learned helplessness. I clicked in and dropped over the lip, boots feeling for something that would take my weight. At 7 feet, the walls went from jagged to smooth like a drilled shaft. At 19 feet, chalky dust coated my sleeves and smelled faintly like an old battery. At 31 feet, the rope pulled left, no wind, no reason, like a hand below had changed the rules. At 42 feet, Ellie called down that the rope's surface temperature had fallen to 52 Fahrenheit by infrared reader, even though my breath fogged less. At 50 feet, the glow sticks formed a near-perfect vertical strain with zero sway, as if the shaft itself rejected pendulums. I held the compass at chest height. The needle strained deeper than straight down. At 61 feet, the gradiometer reading Ellie shouted struck me silent, minus 9,990 nanoteslas vertical, saturating her scale near its bottom limit. We had never seen clean, narrow readings like that. A buried cable could do it, but there were no access roads, no towers, no power within 5 miles. This was a plumbed magnet from a place without sockets. My stopwatch read 5:22 p.m. when I paused to drink. I counted 60 seconds in my head, eyes closed, breath steady. Opening them, the stopwatch read 5:24. I had lost around 60 seconds, no lapse, no drift, both digits jumped like an editor had spliced my life. The audio recorder, later, showed my pause at exactly 59.94 seconds, unbroken. At 77 feet, tiny white flecks drifted upward past my headlamp, like snow going the wrong way. I cupped a handful, the dust clung to my glove in a delicate chain the way iron filings trace field lines. But a magnet wouldn't attract it. Ellie's neodymium test held dead. The particles respected only the down I could not feel. At 88 feet, we paused, and a coyote howled above. Only the sound came from below the soles of my boots, 0.5 seconds delayed, reflecting up like the mountain had vocal cords. Ellie's face appeared at the rim as a dark coin. She asked if I wanted the second compass. I said yes, and she lowered a new hiking compass clipped to a carabiner. The second compass held north for 3 seconds at 88 feet, then swung hard, not exactly down, but 10 degrees off vertical, like it was fighting an appetite. I rotated my wrist in a slow circle. The needle hunted a cone. At 90 feet even, the cone narrowed to a single line, and the needle leaned beneath me as if the floor of the world had tipped. I tried an electromagnet, battery pack at full charge, coil wound 200 turns. Ellie flipped it live at 5:47 p.m., and the compass did not flinch. Her magnetometer twitched 40 nanoteslas sideways, a shrug compared to the abyss below. The downfield ignored our toy like it was a whisper at a highway underpass, lost to constant thunder. At 102 feet, the Geiger counter read 0.13 milliroentgens per hour, nothing abnormal, while the audio recorder captured that 9 to 12 Hz breathing every 61 seconds, unwavering. The rope vibrated when the tone peaked. Not a tremor, not wind. The line hummed like a tuning fork when you bring it too close to a speaker. Except there was no speaker here. At 118 feet, I called up for water, and Ellie said the bottle tipped, but the stream didn't arc. It fell as a polished column, a 4-foot bright cylinder that hit the shaft floor without spray, like glass pouring into glass. The compass needle pulsed with each 61-second beat. My chest remembered what panic tasted like. I marked 130 feet with tape on the line. The shaft walls looked machined, tool chatter faint as finger ridges, too regular for karst, too pristine for miners. A pale scene blinked at 132 feet as my headlamp moved, reflective like enamel or ceramic. The compass strained until it physically bent, a faint kink appearing at the pivot end like soft pewter. Then came the miscount. Ellie's voice ceased for exactly 17 minutes by my wristwatch, though the recorder shows her speaking the whole time, calling numbers, telling me to stop at 142 feet. Later we measured it, my watch had simply erased 17 minutes. Ellie swears she saw me freeze in place for a heartbeat that lasted from 6:02 to 6:19 p.m. I reached the bottom at 149 feet. The floor wasn't soil or stone, it was a perfect dish 12 feet across, smooth as ice, warm to the touch at 66 Fahrenheit. In the dish center, a dark circle 6 inches wide swallowed my headlamp beam without glare. The compass needle brightened in the light and pointed into that circle like a pilgrim to an altar. I held the compass directly over the circle at 6:27 p.m., arm extended. The needle didn't align with the circle center, it chased a line slicing through it, a vertical vector that, when extended, would pierce the sky somewhere far above Ellie's shoulders. Ellie read out an azimuth that made no sense, not magnetic north, not true north, just up-down like a shaft without ending. We left a painted mark and climbed out, both quiet, ends of the rope burning our hands with memory. Back at the truck at 7:52 p.m., the compass was still bent. At 8:13 p.m., in the gas station glare in Ennis, the needle pointed under the truck bed. At home that night at 10:41 p.m., it pointed beneath the floorboards under my desk chair. I mapped the vector. If the line beneath my desk extended through the earth, it intersected the shaft at 149 feet and rose at 90 degrees to meet an altitude near 6,820 feet above sea level, directly through the camera lens that shot this video. At the timestamp 2:03 a.m. when it first dropped in the motel, the lens was 4 feet above the floor. The compass had not been pointing down. It had been pointing through. Here is the twist you can test. Open your phone's compass while you watch, volume low. Note your floor distance, your chair height, your screen position to the nearest foot. If your needle sags when the frame tightens on that dish, count the seconds between pulses, exactly 61. If you feel the room exhale, we are sharing the same shaft. I don't know where the line goes when it leaves your house, or mine. Maybe it threads 1,000 rooms at 4 feet off the floor. Maybe it passes straight through the camera sensor and prefers eyes to stone. If your compass tilts even a hair, tell me what you measure below your feet, what the down wants in your address. This investigation gripped you. If the data points, the timestamps, and that relentless 61-second breath stitched into your night, drop a comment with your readings. Like this video to push the signal past the noise, and subscribe so we can trace the next coordinate together. We will follow the needle, even if it points through us.